Today we're going to talk about St. Francis, saving the earth, and being friends to our animal companions. And the conversation is going to be really stimulating. I hope so. I'd like to start out with the prayer that has been attributed to St. Francis. He most likely didn't write it. It first showed up in 1912, and that's about 700 years after he lived. So. But you know how it is. What's a millennium or two? The sentiment certainly seems to capture his energy. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is offense, let me bring pardon. Where there is discord, let me bring union. Where there is error, let me bring truth. Where there is doubt, let me bring faith. Where there is despair, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, let me bring light. Where there is sadness, let me bring joy. Let me not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that one receives, and it is in self-forgetting that one finds. It is in pardoning that one is pardoned, and it is in dying that one is born to eternal life. So I have a song. This is the setting of the prayer that I just read, sharing with you. This is by Sarah McLaughlin. Now, some of you may know her as a singer-songwriter, and she founded a school for young choristers, and this is a group of her students. So.
Lord, make me an instrument of your peace.
I'll turn it down just a little.
Let me sow love where there is injury, where there is doubt, faith, where there is despair. There is darkness, there is sadness, joy. By the master grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console. To be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it's in giving that we receive, and it's in parting that we are. And it's the dying that we are born to eternal life.
We want to talk a little bit today about St. Francis, and I'm going to try to make a persuasive presentation to convince you that St. Francis, although he had all the trappings of a Catholic monk, priest, he was really one of the first Unitarians. I mean, he was all about love of creation and love of brother and sister, brother sun, sister moon, father time, whatever it was, even beloved sister death. He was embodying and living the Unitarian principle of the interconnectedness of all creation. And he was doing it at a time when it was not really a popular thing to do. War was raging. It was during the Fifth Crusade. You remember the Crusades? That has a lot to be desired in terms of Christian charity or Muslim brotherhood love. These wars that were fought between Christians and Muslims throughout the Middle Ages. Well, during the Fifth Crusade, Francis decided, because who else is going to do it? He decided to go talk to the Sultan in Egypt, the enemy. And he went through the lines of the Muslim forces there. They didn't have guns then, but they had swords and stuff. And he was captured and thrown into, a containment cell. And after being there a couple of weeks, he was able to talk to the Sultan. And they began a conversation that turned to be really fruitful. So he was all about interfaith dialogue, all about love for creation, all about seeing the connectedness of all things in the universe. And so he'd be a great Unitarian Universalist. I think we should adopt him as one. So what about St. Francis? Who was he, and what did he have to say, and why was he so important? According to the Catholic Encyclopedia, he was referred to as the King of Frolic. It's certain that his early life gave no indication of the golden years that were to come later in his life. No one loved pleasure more than Francis. He had a ready wit, sang merrily, delighted in fine clothes and showy display, handsome, gallant, and courteous. He soon became the prime favorite among the young nobles of Assisi, the foremost in every feat of arms, the leader of civil revels, and the very king of frolic. Well, if that sounds like a little bit of overstatement, I would agree with that. It is the Catholic Encyclopedia writing this, right? But it is interesting to note that he loved having a good time. And then he was conscripted by his community to participate in a battle with the local community, Perugia, a town not far away, and his town was in battle with them. And it was a petty skirmish, but he was captured. Maybe that's foreshadowing of what happened later in his life with the Sultan. He was captured and he was in prison for about a year. And so he had to stay in a dank prison cell while the battle was going on, and he caught some kind of virus that almost killed him, and he became a very sickly human being. He came back after the battle was over, after the fight was over, and came back to his father's house. His father was very wealthy. He was a textile merchant known for his fine, really, really dazzling fine textiles that he sold to royalty to make garments and clothing out of it. So he came back and fell back into his normal life again. But then he heard a voice. He heard a voice that, while he was praying, he heard a voice that he assumed was God. To be sure, Francis was God intoxicated, and I think probably a lot of psychologists today might raise a few questions about his mental state, but the depth of his mystical experiences that came from hearing that voice are really indicative of someone who has something special going on. He heard a voice tell him to rebuild the church. He heard a voice tell him to care for the poor. And he did a complete reversal in his life. He actually, while his father was out of town, he sold a lot of the fabrics in his father's shop and gave the gold to the church that needed to be rebuilt. His father came back, was not too happy about that. And this is depicted in Franco Zeffirelli's movie, Brother Son. Have you guys seen that? It's like 1961 or 2, something like that. Was it Panavision, or like these really bubblegum colors the screen is. His father confronts him, and he just strips down of everything he's wearing denouncing his former life, and walks off naked to stay with the poor and the outcast, and began living a life that was opposite of frolic, but he never lost his zest for life. Humble, authentic, vulnerable, courteous, compassionate, and kind. So he started this fellowship of Brothers Minor, or the Little Brothers, as they were translated. And that was the order he began, early 13th century. In our world in which bigger is better, Francis dared whisper that the little, the vulnerable, the underdog, the one from the other side of the tracks, these folks, these things are important too. And in a time that we live in now that seems to run off the steam of cutthroat competition and might makes right, Francis pursued the fine art of compassion and kindness. Which would you like more of? So Francis fell in love with the beauty of the planet and the universe. The king of frolic became the exuberant lover of the physical world. Birds and butterflies, fish, rocks and mountains and rivers and streams, brother sun and sister moon. Tradition has it that Francis was the first religious person to start the nativity scene. And it was a live nativity scene in the early 13th century. He started that tradition. This is one of the beautiful images of him feeding birds. He often was known to preach to the birds. That can get you certified these days. Or not welcomed into polite circles for sure. The abbey, or the church dedicated to his life and vision and ministry, is in Assisi. Have any of you been to that? Have you really? What did you think about it?
Oh, it's beautiful.
The frescoes are by the famous medieval artist Giotto, and I would love to go just for that, just to see those paintings. Here's one of them. I think there are like 24 frescoes that he painted. And then, and recently there's some question as to whether they're authentic Giotto or not. But as I heard someone say, it doesn't really matter, they're really beautiful. So, here's where Assisi is. It's just to the east and south of Florence and to the northeast of Rome. So, when Maria retires, we're going to hike the Camino Francés. We're going to go hike the Franciscan Way. I don't think we're going to do all 850 kilometers, but go sampling them. That's one of our bucket list items for quite a while, especially Maria. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? Just stunning. And it's far enough off the beaten path that it hasn't been overly developed, as I understand. Of course, I haven't been there yet. I hope to go. So Francis gave us quite an example about 800 years ago about how to acknowledge the interdependence of all creation, the blessedness of everything, not only brother sun, sister moon, but brother rock, sister sand. I mean, all of these things have infinite value and worth and are to be cherished, in and of themselves. That's a lesson I think we need to take into the next section of my sermon here. This is where you live. This is where I live. This is a finite place. We run out of resources, but we are resourceful in that we find new ways to generate resources. We have, and I really believe this, we have in our mental capacity, in our spiritual capacity, in our leadership capacity, we have everything we need already to solve the climate crisis. What we don't have is the will. What we don't have is the courage. What we don't have is the vision. We'd rather to continue living our lives by what T.S. Eliot called in his 4 quartets, moving from distraction to distraction by distraction. You know, we get into the maze. He was sharing with me a new book called The Tools, and talking about if you live in your resentments, you're just living in a maze and going in circles like a rat on the wheel, and life continues going on, and you're going in this maze. You're missing it. I had to learn that lesson the hard way after 9/11. I'm glad I learned it, or at least I'm starting to learn it. We have what we need to solve this climate crisis. There's a beautiful article in the Washington Post from about 3 days ago. I wanted to put it on the screen because it's an animated article, but I couldn't make it work in PowerPoint. Even though I'm a subscriber to Washington Post, it's still protected. But you can click on the links and see it. It's by an environmentalist named Sergio Picamina, and he points out that we can make a difference in the world. We don't have to solve, the desertification of the lands in sub-Saharan Africa necessarily. If we can do something, yeah, that's good, let's do something. But if we do something in our own backyard, in our front yard, we can make a difference. We can make a ripple that can grow into a great wave of transformation. If you just planted pollinators in your garden for the butterflies and the bees, what an extraordinary thing that can be. Just letting the weeds grow will do it for you. If you forego, if you have a yard and you cut grass, maybe you could forego cutting your grass so often. Maybe you could bring it back to a natural state where these milkweed and those things grow that enable the pollinators to do their thing. These are really important things we can do that will create a ripple effect to help our communities. We were staying with a friend in Asheville the other night, and Aunt's Pettit, and she reminded me of the story about this permaculture visionary, and I think he's in Australia, but there's a story about what he has done in a desert region. I think it's in Australia. He has consistently planted trees every year for 25 years. And there's no longer a desert there. There's a forest. This is one guy. Imagine. We have what we need to solve this crisis, I believe. We don't need to despair. We don't need to say, there's nothing we can do, so let's keep on living the way we live. I think we have agency. We have capacity. We have power. And if we ever doubt that, let's look at the example of Francis of Assisi, our patron Unitarian saint, and see what he has to offer us. The interdependence of all creation. Brother sun, sister moon, sister bee, brother butterfly, father time, mother earth, mother ocean. That's what we can do. Senegalese environmentalist named Baba Dioum said this, and I heard theologian Ched Myers is how I heard about this in some of his talks. It's brilliant theologian living on the West Coast. Speaking about place, where we live, not always over there, but right here, where we live. He says, we won't save places we don't love. We won't save places we don't love. We can't love places we don't know. We can't love places we don't know. And we don't know places we haven't learned. So what can we learn about this, our place? What can we learn about what Mother Earth in this region needs, and what can we do to respond to it? In the spirit of Francis, in the agency of this fellowship, what can we do to make that kind of difference? We do it for ourselves. We also do it for the rest of creation. We do it for our beloved pets, our friends, our furry friends, some of them, who brings so much delight into our lives. I used to have a prayer on my refrigerator that said, "Oh God, help me to be half the person my dog thinks I am." You know, I can be busy and neglect her pretty much all day long. She's always right there. If I have to go outside to do something, she's right with me, protecting me. You know, she doesn't sleep with us anymore because I've developed an allergy, unfortunately. So we close the door. She has her bed. She has a nice, comfy bed outside. But we wake up in the morning, she's been sleeping outside the door. You know, I mean, that's just incredible. Our pets are like that for us. They love us with an unconditional love. They expect the best from us, and they don't judge us ever, you know. Sometimes I think Maggie judges us, but maybe that's just her. So let's look at some of these. I want to share with you just a little story that from a book Kathy was kind enough to share with me. Pet Prayers and Blessings. And this is about the cathedral in New York, St. John the Divine. So I was on staff at St. John the Divine from 2002 to 2004 or 5. And, you know, every year they have the, they call it the Misa Gaia, the Earth Mass, and it's the blessing of animals. They bring in animals from the Bronx Zoo. I mean, the blessings on an elephant, you know. I mean, can you imagine an elephant walking through the church? It's a big church, I have to say. It's 3 football fields long plus a football field. So you guys have been, right? Yeah. Yeah. So this is called Pet Tale, The Greatest Animal Blessing on Earth by the Reverend Sandra Lee Schubert. The annual feast of St. Francis at the Cathedral Church of St. John the Divine in Manhattan is like no other. The cathedral is a grand and magnificent place. It easily holds 3,000 people. Imagine that many people and their pets and a worship service. And this is really crazy. People bring their dogs and they're sitting 3,000 people with their dogs. Or their, you know, whatever it is they have, their pet birds. The space allows for majestic meanderings and gleeful surges of rapture. Where else could an elephant, a camel, and an oxen be dwarfed by the space they're in? So it's just, I'll send this out to you, and I'll send this to Don to send out to you. It's such a beautiful story. I don't want to take all of our time reading this, but to be in that place when these animals are coming through, it's incredible. And not just that, the Grammy Award-winning jazz musician and composer Paul Winter is one of the artists in residence at the cathedral. And he wrote this beautiful piece of music for this service like 40 years ago, and it's called Misa Gaia. And to hear them play this music in the cavernous cathedral, they have liturgical dancers dressed in white twirling around. They have stuff in the air. It's like a big spiritual carnival with lots of animals that, I mean, I'd never even seen a hedgehog before, but I did the blessing for a hedgehog. I didn't want to touch it, you know. But, yeah, it's incredible. So they really started this tradition in this country especially, or they made it popular in 1985. This is the front of the cathedral. This is a photograph that does not have scaffolding on that right-hand side, which is unusual because for like 40 years it had scaffolding. They couldn't afford to finish it, but they didn't want to take the scaffolding down because it cost more money to put it up. Scaffolding starts to rot. It was, and still is known affectionately as St. John the Unfinished. But Paul Winter, and he won a Grammy for this, by the way. He did this musical setting. I commend it to you. You can pull it up on YouTube. You can listen to the whole thing. There are some videos, too, you can see. One of the most haunting pieces of the whole liturgy for me is this one place that that introduces the Kyrie in the Mass. Kyrie begins, "Lord have mercy." And so introducing the Kyrie, teasing us into the Kyrie, are the voices of wolves. And he plays that, and then he echoes the voice of the wolves with his saxophone. So listen to a little bit of that, if that's okay. Imagine you're sitting in this cavernous cathedral and the lights are low and the sun's coming through the stained glass window, dappled all over the place. Imagine you're there and the elephants are on their way. But before we get to the elephants, they no longer do the elephants. It's not good for the elephants, we discovered. But, oh well. If not the elephants, then how about some cats? Barb, what are the names of your cats?
That's Bones and Lottie Dottie.
And your dog's name?
Rufus McDoofus.
Bones, Lottie, Dottie, and Rufus McDoofus. You should hear what she calls us on the board. Here's Sam and Cupcake. These are grand dogs from Jim and Janice Minshew. They're really cute. A lab on the left, of course, doing what labs do. They swim in the water. And what a great photograph that is, isn't it? Yeah. And the pug is a cupcake. Looks like a cupcake, right? I can't remember if this is Jim's dog or Janice's dog, but they have one dog named Cookie and another dog named Cricket. You'll meet Cricket in a minute. But before we get to Cricket, somehow I got my slides out of order and I got Chumley in here. Chumley is one of their grand dogs. I think Chumley lives in New York. Dogs have it made in New York. There are more smells per square inch than anywhere else on the earth. And another grand dog, Belle. Isn't that beautiful? A silver lab. I had not seen a silver lab. Just gorgeous. And here's Cricket. Yeah. I think that's Jim's dog, and Cookie is Janice's dog. But they share, of course. And look at this guy. This is another great photograph. Ellen sent this. What a great photograph. Sunshine. Tell us about Sunshine.
Sunshine is a St. Bernard Golden Retriever mix.
Ah.
And she came to Tryon at the age of 8 weeks. And we had another dog, Sophie, who was 2.5, and she raised Sunshine. And Sophie was a runaway dog. Whenever it thundered, she'd run away. And she loved to go on adventures by herself. And she tried to take Sunshine with her, and Sunshine went once, and then after that, she'd just tell us when Sophie had decided to go. And she's having a hard time walking now. So Sophie died in January, and Sunshine is now the #1 dog, which is good for her. She's enjoying that, but she's having a hard time walking. So pray for her health and freedom from pain, please.
Yeah. Well, she certainly looks like she's full of love.
She's wonderful.
Yeah. Yes, Bob.
Yeah, well, what you said way back really hit us here.
Oh.
We had all kinds of animals, as pets,
Yeah.
and some so-called wild ones. Now we have Ocachina and OJ.
Mochaccino and OJ.
Yeah, I was never a cat fancier, but I paid one real quick. And man, she'll tell you, they've been great with us. And we'd like to open up more where we get the time to take care of.
It's a little bit of work. Yeah. OJ and Mochaccino. What colors are they?
Well,
I sent you a picture, did you get it?
No, I didn't. Oh, I'm sorry.
It was, well, during the storm and all that jazz, I wondered if you could get it or not.
Well, you know what? I made up my mind last night as I was putting this together that I'd do a follow-up next time too, because I imagine some folks weren't able to send and I missed some, so we will get OJ. Yeah.
They won't mind.
They won't mind? Beautiful. Thank you.
Ocachina is a small, I guess you say black and white.
She's a
mixed,
calico.
Calico.
Okay, calico, yeah.
Yeah, and she knows where to go to get her supper and anything else she wants. OJ is a huge yellow cat,
Yellow tiger.
yellow tiger,
Oh.
it says.
He's mounted.
Yeah,
Wow.
but they've really made, a lot of fun, I guess you call
They had such
it.
life.
Right that we have them.
Yeah. Yeah, when I moved to New York City, I thought I didn't like it because I had to walk the dog, whereas before I just let him out, And I thought, it's good to have a dog to walk because it gets you out of your place, Really, I mean, you can't not walk your dog. It's easier than cleaning up the apartments. Yeah, but these animals bring so much love. Love that. We will get OJ and Mochaccino on the big screen. Yeah. Yeah. And this is Wanda. Wanda is from Seattle, is that right? This is a grand dog.
Portland, Oregon.
Portland. Okay, what kind of dog is Wanda?
Chiweenie. She's a mixture between a Chihuahua and a Dachshund. So she's not as long as a Dachshund, but she's got kind of that body. And she's
Oh
just
my
tall.
gosh.
Yeah, a lot of personality.
Look at that face, she rules the roost. Wanda the Chiweenie. That's a new one for me. And here's Hershey. Yeah. How cute is Hershey?
A lot of people don't know that I got Hershey from a group called Forever Dream Senior Dog Sanctuary in Tryon. I don't know if it's...
I never heard of it. It's called Forever Dreams?
Senior Dog Sanctuary, and it's basically a hospice for little dogs under 8 pounds.
Oh.
Yeah, Verna Wilkins, she's off of Vineyard Road. And, but Verna she was the therapist over at Cooper Reese, and she just said, God wants me to do this and take care. And so Hershey was one that she got, and that was adoptable. So he's a senior rescue.
Oh my gosh. You can see gratitude in his eyes. Yeah, I love that. That's a great organization to know about.
And she
Thank you
does
for
it
that.
all by herself.
Really?
She's got about 25 little dogs right now.
Whoa, she needs some help.
She's off Linwood, I can't remember.
Uh,
It's dry, but you gotta
straight up. Now look at this little guy. Buster. This is the neighbor of Kathy and Nick. And Buster is 15, did you say? Man, how old is that in dog years? That's 100 years old, right? Or 105. Wow.
And he's a trooper.
I hope I'm looking that good at 105.
Yeah,
If I make it.
inspiration to us, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I remember meeting this adorable cat, Scully. I mean, he was just sitting on the bed posing for people to take his picture.
Beautiful.
One of the prettiest cats I've ever seen. Yeah. Scully. Sully. Oh, sorry, thinking X-Files here. Sully, like the captain of the plane. Oh, got it. Sully, thank you for that. And then
It's a big ragdoll cat.
a ragdoll. Yeah. And Harvey. How does Sully and Harvey get along?
They love each other.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. When our Maria's cat Lula and Snappy, those two cats came to live with us, Maggie wasn't quite sure about cats and took him a while, but now Maggie really misses, especially Lula. Yeah. Speaking of which, there she is. Cantankerous little bear chasing dog that rescued me about 10 years ago. She's 12, best I can figure. Yeah. When I adopted her in South Central LA, and she had a cast on her back, her left rear leg. It had been broken in 3 places. Evidently she got hit by a car. But it was fashionable for her. It was pink and purple polka dots. So never slowed her down. Now this makes me sad. This is our beloved Peaches. Peaches is no longer with us.
Did you eat him?
We didn't eat him. But somebody did. We lost our chickens to wildcats, one to a hawk, and 2, I think it was, to foxes, and maybe more, because we lost about 4, didn't we, sweetie?
6.
Yeah. Peaches could just as easily be named Frogs, because she liked to eat frogs as much as she liked to eat peaches, but yeah, poor frogs. Yeah. This is the girls, our brood. Back in the day, our pandemic chickens. This is our outside pet named Jack. He's a comedian, Jack Black. Yeah. And this is our nephew pet, Rocco. He lives in Alexandria, Virginia. Maria's nephew's on Rocco. And this is Loretta, who is a native of Columbus, by the way. She was born here, but now she lives in Charleston with my daughter and her family. She is big. This is Maddie. One of Maria's co-workers owns Maddie, and we were over the other day, and I said, we gotta have this picture. Now you see why. So those are our pets, and I have just one more for a little comic relief. Representing all the rest of the animal kingdom that we don't have on the screen. We will get some more ready for next week, though, and I'll make sure I include all the ones I got. And if I didn't have yours and you sent it, please resend it to me, Nance, if you wouldn't mind, and anyone else. If you want to have your animal included, your furry friend or your not so furry friend. Yeah. I had a friend in New York who adopted a Nile lizard. What was it? Nile?
Monitor.
What?
Monitor lizard.
Nile monitor lizard. And it's like, And that lizard had so much personality, it would jump up on the couch and steal the potato chips out of your hand. Yeah.
Now
Now
you got it.
I got you.
I got a story I gotta tell you.
Yeah, tell us.
When I was working for Penn State, I supervised a 8-county area that had 18 women working there as FNF aides. It was the Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program that those of us in Cooperative Extension, helped to take care of for the university all throughout the state. And they would work with families that were poor or had problems, and with shelter and food and different kinds of things like that, as well as working with families with young children, helping to help them understand what nutrition was all about, how to read a nutrition label and do all that kind of jazz, right? So I'll get back to the right story. But anyway, I'd have to go around with them at least once a year to each one of them to visit the families and to be, as part of the supervisory capacity. So get in this one house and they had a cat and a dog, and they were introducing us to their pets because you know how that is. It's a nice way to get to know people and when you're walking into their home for the first time. And they said, well, we have a ferret too, but we never know where he is. He's here somewhere, Freddie the ferret, right? So we never did see Freddie the ferret, but we're getting ready to leave, and I just went to put my jacket on, and there he was in the sleeve of my coat.
Oh!
Freddie the ferret, and I'm glad he wasn't a biter. I think maybe he was in the other direction. He pulled me, so the biting end was out at the sleeve. But Freddie the ferret went flying out of the coat sleeve, and I'll tell you, I almost peed myself. It was so scary.
I would have jumped off the floor.
I just had to tell you that story.
Freddie the ferret, I love that. Yeah. So I have the Pet's Prayer from this wonderful book, one of the wonderful books Kathy loaned to me, Pet Prayers and Blessings. Ceremonies and celebrations to share with the animals you love. And the prayer is this: Divine Spirit of all living things, please guide us in the care of this, our animal friend. May we be good pet parents. May we learn the skills and abilities we need to care for them. May we call upon sacred love and the nutritious bounty of our lives to sustain and feed our beloved pets. Let us nourish his or her spirit as we provide daily bread. Please bring the wisdom of the animal kingdom into our home, for we call upon the power and the glory of this ancient wisdom to treat this loved one as a holy child of yours and ours. Amen. So all these beautiful animals, ones who have gone on before us and ones who are still with us, we remember today, we celebrate them as icons for what is possible between the interconnectedness of all creation. Remind us that we're not alone. We're better together, and together we have what we need. We have the capacity to find ways to recreate this earth and to renew it and put it on a good footing for our grandchildren. And may we find ways to do that in our own community, in our own homes, in our own lives, and may we support one another in the doing of it. So I ask that we say together now the extinguishing of the flame. We extinguish the flame of this chalice. Let us follow the light of truth until we meet again. And so now I've had a lot of words to say. I'd love to hear from you. What is the wisdom that you would like to share about caring for our community and our pets?
I just want to say I had the pleasure of attending a service at St. John's Cathedral during the animal.
Oh, you were there for a blessing?
Yes. And And my daughter and I were driving about down the street, and we saw these animals going into the cathedral. So we stopped and went in there, and I just remember being so moved by the size and the shape and the difference between them. And it makes me think about this beautiful spot that we are in right now, surrounded by animal creatures, our friends and those that we admire and love. I think today is very special because my memory brought back that situation, and I looked around and I could see those animals here. So I hope you feel the same way.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that remembrance. Yeah, it was a magical time to be in that place. Yeah. You know, we do have one more pet I didn't put up on the screen, but David Cedrone, our beautiful partner in this place, sent me a video of his parrot. This parrot is talking. And when David is away and comes home, sometimes his dogs will soil the floor. And the first thing he says is, well, you fill in the blanks, as he's getting paper towels. Well, I have a video of the parrot saying exactly that. I'll show it to you at coffee hour. We should call it happy hour. Yeah. What else? Yeah, done.
One more quick pet story. I
Yeah.
just got back from Kansas City visiting. There was an art show there, and I was staying with my stepchildren, who have this dog, the strangest looking dog you've ever seen. It's a mixture, it's a mud.
Yeah.
The front part of the dog is named Beanie, and her rear end is so large they've named it Diane. So Beanie tries to get through the dog door, but Diane won't let it. It is truly hilarious. If I can get a picture of Beanie.
Oh, we need a picture of Beanie Diane for next time.
Oh my goodness.
I've felt that way before. That's why I'm on keto. What else? Is anyone planning? Do you have pollinators in your yard, milkweed and stuff, for butterflies? Yeah? Good. Yeah. I love that. Love that. It does make a difference. It really, really does. Yeah.
We've seen the trail at Lake Lure when the monarchs start their
Oh,
migration. And I've got some pretty spectacular pictures of them.
Oh my
And
gosh.
they are kind of organizing. You can see they have a plan.
Yeah.
We might
Yeah.
not give them credit.
Isn't that extraordinary?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that somebody here's been at Lake Lure. That's where we live, not in the town, but between the town and Rutherfordton.
Well, I pinned you down somewhere around in Pennsylvania. I wasn't quite sure what little borough.
When
but
you're Pittsburgher, you know, people always know that's, you
There
know.
you go.
I went into, the first thing I did when I moved to there, went into the bank, little bank they used to have downtown in Lake Lure. And the lady said to me, "You're from Pittsburgh, aren't you?"
Really?
Why, heavens. Here, I was thinking the southern accent was the most beautiful thing on anyone's ears. And she's picking out the Pittsburgh accent. I know.
Yep.
It's like-
I knew it.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Yeah. Well, why don't we have some coffee and continue our conversation? Thank you so much.